Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back. Go around the room. Oh, first, anybody here for the first time? Or what's your name?
Sushi. My name's Earl Mello.
Anybody else?
I'm native California, from San Francisco, now in 19.
Welcome back. Welcome to Gay Buddhist Fellowship. Anyone else? We're gonna go around and say our names, and then I'll introduce our speaker for today. I'm George Gibbs. I'm your facilitator today.
I'm Grisha.
Mike.
My name's Cass.
Jim. Tony.
Jim. Earl.
Atsushi. Jack.
Michael.
I'm Brad.
Welcome, and welcome all of you on Zoom. Our speaker today, Joseph Rodriguez, taking refuge by evacuating gay Afghan refugees. Joe Rodriguez is a Soto Zen Buddhist practitioner at San Francisco Zen Center, where he sits on the board committee for diversity, inclusion, and belonging. He is a father, a social impact strategist, and an LGBTQ+ activist. Welcome, Joseph.
Okay, thank you. So one of the things I'm going to ask you is, for those who are attending, I recently had COVID and I have all the boosters and I'm done with COVID, but it might be better for you to see my mouth as I speak because I'm going to be speaking quite a bit. Is everyone okay with that? If you're not, just raise your hand. It's not a problem. But okay, great. So you can see me? Great. Well, the other thing I want to say to the people that are here as well as who are joining us is I'm going to be sharing some confidential images with you today of people that we've been working with who are Afghan, and their families are still in Afghanistan, so it's very important to just respect their privacy and not share them or take photos of them in any way. I won't be using their real names, I'll be using nicknames or code names. And I just also want to thank and acknowledge some of the people that are here today that are part of my evacuation team or our evacuation team. Jim Walker is here. I think Tom Bruein is on the line. I think my friend Lou Rita is on the line. I think Satyaji is on the line. And a number of other people I can't see. But if I missed you, sorry, I just can't see that far from over there. So thank you for inviting me back to speak at GBF. I've missed you guys. COVID has kept me a little bit from afar, and I've been busy. Today's story is a very personal story to me, and I think it's the first time I've told it really publicly, at least at this length. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, and I take refuge in the Sangha. These are familiar words to anyone who's studied Buddhism. These three jewels are the cornerstone of the Buddhist spiritual tradition. So what does it mean to take refuge in something? Well, for the last 10 months, I've been taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, as my volunteer team and I began evacuating young LGBTQI people from Afghanistan. And it all started in August of last year during the fall of Kabul. My gay brother and I were visiting my parents in Arizona for my dad's 86th birthday. And my dad ended up in the ER. And I was looking to distract myself and because I was really worried about my dad. So I'd been following this LGBTQ account for a number of years, a Twitter account, and they were sending out information about STDs and how to HIV for LGBT queer people in Afghanistan. It's illegal to do, it's very dangerous and everything. So I sent a Twitter message to the account and I said, "Are you guys okay?" And the answer was clear. I received back, "No, please help us get out of here." It turns out that two young gay Afghans had providing LGBT health-specific information to queer Afghans through anonymous social media accounts. They did this important work despite constant death threats from the Taliban and ISIS-K. They were heroes who were about to be hunted by the Taliban government. So began our 10-month adventure with a 26-year-old doctor who we call JP and a 21-year-old student we nicknamed Max. Over 10 days, we made 5 different attempts to evacuate them. Twice they were turned back at the Karzai International Airport in Kabul, once for not arriving in an embassy limo, and the other time by missing the bombing at one of the gates by 2 hours. And it was just mayhem there. And we had never done this before, and we were just saying, how can we get them out? When the last American jets rumbled off, our two young Afghan friends were exhausted and wanting to give up, but we wouldn't hear of it. There must be a way to save these two human beings. According to the Buddhist author Tasha Friedman, the idea of taking refuge is so important in Buddhism that you can say the definition of a Buddhist is someone who takes refuge in the 3 jewels: Buddha, Sangha, and Dharma. So what do you take refuge in? Our spiritual practice is reflected in what we place our highest trust in. When we're children, we take refuge in our parents and our teachers. As adults, we may take refuge in authorities, doctors, police. We often take refuge in the beliefs of society that we have to look a certain way, pursue a successful career, have a husband or wife, or buy this and that if we want to be happy. But as we move through life, it becomes clear that none of these things will ultimately help us because everything changes. So what do we put our trust in? As Buddhists, we place our trust in the highest reality that lies at the heart of everything. There is a trust that goes beyond any particular circumstance or outcome. It is a trust that allows us to go beyond attachment to success or failure, good or bad experiences, or even life or death. A trust that doesn't say everything will be okay, but just that everything will be. It is a form of surrendering that actually brings tremendous power. In this situation, my brother and I felt we needed to do something, to take compassionate action. We needed to practice being advocates for these young men. And I use the word practice because we did not know how to do this. We were completely unfamiliar with refugee work, the organizations, and the rules of the game. We were pure beginners. And as the great Zen master Suzuki Roshi would say, we needed to embrace our beginner's mind because it would give us fresh eyes and creativity to truly help our two Afghan friends. And if you could bring back that slide, I'm going to show I think it will help everyone just to see these two guys. Those are the two guys that I'm going to be talking about. One slide back. The JP is on the left and Max is on the right. And JP is a medical doctor, and he's 26 years old, and Max is a 21-year-old university student. As we realized that we quickly realized that we needed a safe country for JP and Max to escape to. And then secondly, a Western country that would take them in the long term as humanitarian refugees. So through our political friends, Tom helped us out on this, Tom Bruein, we reached out to senators in Arizona, the U.S. senators from Arizona, as well as Nancy Pelosi's office and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. They were all sympathetic to our cause, but there was little they could do for our two guys because there was no connection to the U.S. And at the same time, the U.S. was in the middle of evacuating over 100,000 Afghans who did have some connection to the U.S. So we asked our Afghans, where else did they want to go? And the clear choice was Canada. I'm not sure why. I think they had seen a number of TV shows and movies, and they thought Canada was a good place. It turned out to be really right about it. It's one of the most generous countries when it comes to humanitarian refugees. So we reached out to Canadian diplomats and elected officials. Friends of friends helped us out, and we got no response. Crickets. Finally, one person says, listen, the reason that you're not getting any response right now is the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, has called a snap election, and the government of Canada is pretty much frozen in place until October and November after the election. So we started looking for help. And the one LGBT refuge organization that everyone referred us to is a Canadian NGO called Rainbow Railroad. You probably have heard of it. They have a long history of bringing people who are not safe in their own countries and rescuing people from places like Chechnya, Syria, Iran, Jamaica, and many others. So we sent emails to Rainbow Railroad, and each time we received a form email saying that given the record number of requests from Afghanistan, they would get back to us in time. But time was the one thing we did not have. One of the doctor's friends from medical school was a Taliban supporter, and he confronted JP at a small dinner party and asked him if he was still dating men. It was a clear warning that he may be turned over to the Taliban. Equally concerning was the fact that someone was trying to hack the LGBT social media accounts of our two Afghans. So someone was really onto them and wanted to know who they were. The Taliban did not know the identities of our Afghans, but they were being hunted. We needed to get them out, and fast. We began looking for a country, ideally one with a strong democracy, a history of human and LGBT rights, and some economic prosperity. We asked our friends with connections in Denmark, Holland, Germany, France, Sweden, and etc. To up the pressure and the stakes, it became really clear that our two Afghans were taking refuge in us. They were pitting their hopes, or their futures, on our team, on me and our team, often confiding me into the wee hours of the night that we were their only hope. Our doctor had a valid passport, which was great news, but he only had a visa to Iran, which wasn't going to help us getting him to a Western country. Our student had an expired passport and no visa. We were starting from scratch with Max. We cannot honestly say everything is going to be okay to them, but they needed hope, so we let them take temporary refuge in us and our activities. Ironically, their belief in us made us even work harder. We involved them in the development of our emerging rescue plans, brainstorming, promoting their resumes, leveraging their connections on the ground in Afghanistan. And in order to convey my Buddhist approach to rescuing our Afghans, I often use the expressions to ground them. Like, we need to focus on what's happening right now. Or step by step. We'll get to that, but let's do this step by step. To bring them in the present and counter their fears, their very real fears of being arrested and killed. These are young men who really think they're about to be killed. So what does it mean to take refuge in the Buddha? Quoting Tasha Friedman again, the Buddha jewel means that taking refuge in the historical Buddha and his teachings. I think that's pretty clear. We know the Buddha's teachings, the scriptures. But it also can refer to your spiritual teacher, or whoever in your life represents the consciousness of an enlightened being. There's a Tibetan Buddhist saying that if you see a teacher, if you see your teacher as a Buddha, you will get teachings and blessings of a Buddha. But if you see your teacher as a normal person, you will get teachings and blessings of a normal person. So from Phoenix, I talked often with my best friend and longtime spiritual buddy, Lou. I told him that I was afraid of failing here. He told me that for him, there was no higher calling than trying to help save the life of another human being. It was not about succeeding or failing. It was about doing this work. I listened. This advice was coming from a man who, a few years back, instinctively jumped in the ocean to save a woman that was being swept away by a riptide, which really requires an amazing amount of courage. I also remember the Dalai Lama and Bishop Desmond Tutu's book about joy, where they talked about the importance of a purpose greater than oneself, the power of deep connections with other human beings as the keys to joy. They were the things that we were experiencing with our two Afghans. I knew I was channeling all my abilities and gifts. As I read recently in an article in the New York Times, when you take the Buddhahood as your ultimate goal, not happiness, everything tends to fall in place around it. And that seemed to be the case here. Recognizing that your nature is Buddha nature, it is possible for you to become a Buddha, at least temporarily. By practicing to save the lives of these young men, I felt I was moving in the direction of goodness and wholeness rather than being focused on my own happiness. And there is power in that. So back to the story of my two Afghans. My team needed a miracle, and we finally got one. A longtime friend said that he knew a well-connected gay person in Costa Rica who might be willing to help us bring our Afghans to that country. And for those of you who know Costa Rica, it's modern, it's eco-friendly, it's affluent, it's a really up-and-coming country. It has a great history of human and LGBT rights. It turns out this young and energetic Costa Rican was more than willing to help. He was part of a prominent Jewish family that had fled to Costa Rica from the Nazis during World War II. And within a weekend, the plight of our Afghan couple had been emailed to the president of Costa Rica, the vice president, the director of immigration, and Costa Rica's ambassador to the United Nations. And just really magically and mysteriously, in the following week, I found myself on Zoom conversations with all these political leaders. Costa Rica was emerging as a clear opportunity for us. But as often is the case with well-functioning democracies, these things take time, which we did not have. Democracies have laws and rules around immigration, and we had to respect that. And like Canada, the country is facing an upcoming federal election, as well as high unemployment due to COVID. And they had, in the last 2 years, had received 200,000 requests, humanitarian requests, from people in Venezuela and Nicaragua, two countries that are next door. And we could see this might take months. And we didn't have months to get these guys out. We became discouraged, but our Costa Rican friend reminded us that the final scene from the movie Schindler's List, when the Jewish people that Oskar Schindler had helped rescue gave him a ring with the Talmudic quotation, "Whoever saves one life saves the world entire." So that really buoyed us and gave us we gotta find a way. So each day we kept working. by contacting everyone we knew to help save these Afghans. And at night, we were counseling these two guys to keep their spirits up. The pressure was intense. For the first time in my life, I had high blood pressure. We created a situation room in my parents' house where we posted leads on 200 Post-it notes on a closet door. And we kept reviewing them each day and reorganizing them. By mid-September, nothing seemed to be paying off. We were running out of leads and options. And then something truly remarkable happened. Around the same time we were experiencing roadblocks in Costa Rica, we finally got connected to Rainbow Railroad, the Canadian NGO. Their executive director wanted to know, who are these ballsy people that are negotiating with the Costa Rican government on behalf of some gay Afghans? And what's going on with that? How is it working out? So we had a long Zoom call with him, talking about our negotiations and the plight of our guys. He was impressed by our Afghan service to their community and our evacuation team's efforts to help them. At the end of the call, given the danger to the doctor's life especially, Rainbow Railroad offered to fly him out as soon as possible. They needed to get him a visa to a nearby country and a plane ticket out of the international airport in Kabul. To our great relief, so JP got his flight and visa, but we did not know if he's going to be on the Taliban list at the airport and then be arrested. The good thing is the Taliban doesn't believe in technology or knowledge, so they don't use computers, and it really helped us. To our great relief, the doctor passed through the control point and flew to a nearby country without incident. He had escaped. And remember, Rainbow Railroad had direct connections to Canada, his dream host country. It couldn't be better. We were happy and on cloud nine. In taking refuge in the Dharma, here are the words of Tasha Freeman. Dharma is the path of Buddhist teachings, guiding us towards true wisdom and the awakening of compassion. When we take refuge in the Dharma, we surrender our conventional understanding of reality to a higher view. It is a commitment to remember that no matter what happens in our lives, it is all part of our spiritual path. Rather than getting swept away in the story, we choose to act in accordance with our highest principles. This requires acknowledging that all external things in our lives that we usually blame our problems on aren't actually the cause of our happiness or unhappiness. They are only the agents. The real cause comes from within ourselves, our own mental conditions and reactions. And if I believe this, I can't blame my boss, my parents, my boyfriend for making me unhappy. Only I'm responsible for my own happiness. Taking refuge in the Dharmas is more than accepting a set of old Buddhist teachings. The Dharma also refers to your own inner wisdom, your own innate understanding of the truth. And in order to be effective in helping our two Afghans, we had to be our best selves, channeling more of our Buddha nature by following some of the precepts, for me, of Zen Buddhism, like doing good for others, practicing truthful communications, and not praising ourselves at the expense of others. There's a lot to unpack here, so it may be best to illustrate these points through the story of our two Afghans. My team and I thought at least half our problems would be solved if we got the doctor to a neighboring country and a safe house there. We were elated that he was out of the country, but our celebration only lasted about 6 hours. We got a long and tearful call from the doctor. At the safe house arranged by Rainbow Railroad, he was now housed in a place where his ex-boyfriend was staying. Their relationship had ended badly. The doctor dumping the boyfriend, and then the boyfriend outing him to his conservative Afghan parents, and, hold on to your hats, His wife. Yes, the doctor was forced to marry at 16 years of age, and he had a wife and 3 kids. JP was unhappy, dealing with all sorts of messy and twisted karma. At the same time, we had to shift our focus to the engineering student who had an expired passport. Rainbow Railroad could not help us with those tasks. And our young student, Max, felt very alone and isolated in Kabul. And like most other queer Afghans, he was not out to his parents. So my team went on the hunt to help him find a passport. The Afghan passport offices were officially closed. So we contacted Afghan consulates where officials were reportedly selling leftover passports. We contacted the former Canadian ambassador to Afghanistan, and through friends, we even emailed the former Afghan president's daughter to see if they had any passports in their safe in Switzerland. We even reached out, and you won't believe this, to Israeli friends who had connections to the Mossad, the Israeli version of the CIA, to see if they were willing to help us. None of these things worked. I was having problems sleeping. I too had lost my perspective, and I was grasping, becoming personally attached and frustrated that I could not help Max out. And Max is just the best person. Finally, let's talk about taking refuge in the last Buddhist jewel, the Sangha, or the spiritual community, because it was really the key to how we solved this. The Sangha is traditionally any group of practicing Buddhists, including monks, nuns, and lay people. These people are devoted to living by following the Buddhist way. For me, a Sangha is also a group of high-minded people who are on a path together, who support, encourage, and inspire one another. A Sangha is one of the most important elements of a spiritual life. And if you're out there on your own, it's incredibly hard to stay focused and overcome life's inevitable difficulties. That's why we're here today. And that's why I formed a Sangha to help rescue these young men. My Sangha in this situation became a core group of 25 people who were committed to rescuing these 2 young men. We attract a diverse group of women and men, straight and gay, in the U.S., Costa Rica, and Canada. They included several LGBT activists like my friend Jim, a Vietnamese American immigrant, and many Jewish people. The one thing that all these people had in common is they had experienced discrimination in their own lives. They knew what it felt to be treated as the other. Some of our other Sangha members included my business partner, who is a terrific writer, and edited the profiles of our 2 Afghans, so they had a compelling narrative of their humanitarian service to the LGBT Afghan community, the threats against their life, and the education and skills they could bring to another country. My friend Jim, who is a retiring marriage and family therapist, or in the process of that, has arranged and provided probably over 75 hours of psychological support for our Afghans, both when they were in Afghanistan and beyond. By November, my brother and I had spent several thousands and thousands of dollars on this effort. So we sent an email update to our friends and family and included just one paragraph in like a 10-paragraph letter inviting them to help us financially. We thought we might get a dozen contributions and maybe raise $1,000 or so. We ended up getting 60 contributions from 60 people and raising over $10,000. We also asked JP and Max to draw on the power of their Sangha, their network of friends, to help Max get a passport. And luckily, something worked. We got a big break at the end of November. It turns out that Max's family knew someone in an Afghan passport office. And we were able to buy a valid passport for $1,200, ending a 3-month-long hunt. Another friend of Max, knew a trusted travel agent who who could arrange for a business visa to another country in days rather than months. Finally, in December, Rainbow Railroad flew Max out to Afghanistan to join JP. We were elated, and we celebrated Christmas with much joy and good cheer. But the story does not end here. In February, we helped smuggle out the doctor's wife and 3 kids across the Afghan border to safety so they could begin the process of getting to Canada, a generous country that will provide all our refugees with income, food, and housing for a year, as well as free medical care for life and affordable higher education. JP and his family should be leaving for Canada in the next few weeks. I'm glad to report that Max, our university student, arrived in Canada a few weeks ago. He is living in Calgary and going through the process of establishing himself in a radically different culture. He is grateful to be starting a new life in the West. And as a young gay man, he finally feels free to be his true self. A few weeks ago, we got a message from Max saying he had been invited to a party. Then he asked, "What is a white party?"
Oh, God.
And a white party is a dance party where everyone wears white. In order to simplify this talk, I have not included the stories of 4 additional LGBT Afghans that we have helped. They include a 33-year-old entrepreneur who worked for the U.S. Army and counseled LGBT Afghans for a decade. A gay 21-year-old TV host who was sexually assaulted by the Taliban, who then tried to kill him for over 3 months. A 24-year-old shoemaker who had been sexually assaulted by 2 men and then was hunted by mobs for being gay. A 27-year-old civil engineer who was on the run for the Taliban because he simply had a relationship with another man. I love these guys. Mm-hmm. They're like my sons. But the good news is we've evacuated all of these people from Afghanistan, and they are in a safe house in a nearby country. We expect them to be in Canada no later than October or November of this year. In the meantime, we are providing them with food and pocket money, and we are grateful that they are relatively safe. Of course, my evacuation team that's here and on the Zoom call and other places face other challenges. Two of our Afghans have been helping out financially sustain their families, particularly their moms and sisters who no longer had husbands, who are discouraged from working outside the home by the Taliban. We are raising money for them until their sons arrive in Canada and are able to send money back home. So I'd like to conclude this talk with these words. When you take refuge in the Buddha is not going to swoop in and solve all your problems. We do this by realizing and channeling our own Buddha nature, our own enlightened potential, by living our lives intentionally and ethically as the best we can, by being supported by our Sangha, our spiritual community. And you might be asking yourself, what motivated me to take on such a challenge? On one level, I responded to a unique set of circumstances in the best ways I could. But on another level, my friends know that I have lost my sister to cancer when I was 5 and she was 3.5. So I have seen a young person that I love struggle and die and not be able to do anything about it. Growing up, I vowed to help struggling young people when I could, because I could see my sister in them, as well as my grieving boyhood self. With these Afghans, I've held their pain and fears with them, sometimes too much so, at the expense of my own health and well-being. I'm trying to find the middle way here, taking care of myself as well as them. And I have few regrets. When I saw the photos of Max arriving in Canada, I wept. I cannot wait to fly to Canada later this year and finally meet these 10 Afghans in person. And I just want to leave you with a few words of advice. Whatever people project or other worthwhile project you take on, like helping a friend, a coworker, or a parent, it's okay to be a beginner. At age 62, I was a beginner. And you can be a beginner at any age. It's human to start off with the best of intentions and get lost in the struggles, the emotions, and the grasping. These are opportunities to return to the breath and to this moment. Life is messy, and life is beautiful. I encourage you to take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the Sangha each day. Amen. And if you want to stay updated on the journey of our Afghans, I can put you on our mailing list. Our updates include some of the financial and other ways you can help them as they wait for and are resettled in Canada. And if you know anyone in Calgary or Toronto that you think might welcome my folks, please let me know. I'm going to leave a list up here. You just put your email or phone number. So I think we have about 5 or 6 minutes for questions. So please.
Boy, what a profoundly moving story. Thank you for your dedication and devotion. How can we help? I mean, I guess that's my question. I love the way you integrated it within the context of the Dharma. And I'm glad that there were people from this Sangha who have been involved and helpful. I guess for me, it's particularly poignant. I've been very involved in international global education. I'm a social worker. Was involved in human rights in Argentina. Anyway, so I'm particularly interested. People in the Sangha are very well connected. So whether you want to take time to talk about that now or afterwards, I'd be very interested.
Let's talk afterwards.
Absolutely.
But I can give you a very high-level answer to that.
Sure.
So you can imagine Canada provides for their basic needs once they get there. But right now, we're supporting and keeping alive and sending money to two of the guys who are in an apartment. So we're looking for small dollar donations.
Sure.
We're about to open a fund at the Tides Foundation where people could get tax deductions. We're going to be reaching out to wealthy LGBT donors, people like who can give $5,000 or more. Mm-hmm. If you know any of those people, please talk to me about it. We're also going to be talking to Microsoft and Google about getting all our folks computers and cell phones. The Canadian government doesn't provide for that. We need people to welcome them to Calgary and to Toronto because we don't know the system there. We are trying to get all of them into college. Fortunately, Canadian college is a lot more affordable, but if you have connections in the Canadian education system, that would be helpful. Anything that you might think of, Jim and others are providing psychological counseling. If you know psychologists who might be able to do this, most of these people have been sexually assaulted and raped. It's a very tough situation. And they're going to need long-term support in that way. And we're looking for mentors, gay elders, people who could be just friends with these guys and show them the way. Again, those are just some of the ways. Did I catch everything, Jim, on that?
You did.
Okay. Other comments, questions, queries? Oh, one thing I want to say is I got done writing this like at 7 o'clock this morning. And it is so emotional to talk about because it is just like completely from my heart. And I was trying to integrate some of the spiritual principles here too. So I'm sorry, I actually emailed the wrong photos, the wrong PowerPoint, but I have them on my phone, and I can show you some of the folks. And I'll put my mask on when we get done with this. But if you'd like to see some of the guys and hear some of the stories, it's really powerful. If you could go to the PowerPoint slide, there's like a series of pictures of some women and children. I want to just say this. For about $400, we're keeping alive 2 families. $400 a month. And $400 a month goes a long way in Afghanistan. And if you know people who are interested in helping with that, that would be very helpful because, and we take $25, whatever, but it's been really, I mean, we hear the boys talk about what, you know, their worries for their own families, and they just can't wait to get to Canada so they can work and they can send money home to their families. I think there was okay, go ahead.
The last one?
Yeah, one more, and one more. Oh yeah, actually, this is great. Go back one slide. You can see, this is the, here's the guy who recently got to Calgary. Here's the guy who worked for the U.S. Army, our TV host, our shoemaker, and our civil engineer. If you can go to the next one. Oh, yes. This is one family and another family, and they're all being led by women. Go back one more slide, too. Thank you. Here's the doctor and his wife, and these 3 kids. The doctor also has a boyfriend. The wife knows about it, and they'll probably eventually divorce once they get settled in Canada and everyone's really well established. They want to make sure everything is done right. But we're really grateful to Canada. We're really grateful to Rainbow Railroad. We're grateful to our great team of about 25 people and 60 donors. We couldn't be more grateful. We're just so happy.
Would that all these stories ended that way? There's a lot of work to be done.
Oh, there's so much work to be. And here, one other thing. There are thousands of LGBT people that were left in Afghanistan. We have a list of about 2,000. And we are doing everything to try to promote their cause. But it breaks my heart every day. People ping us because they've heard about us, begging us to take them on as advocates. And we just can't do it anymore. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for a really, really powerful story. And as you say, the needs are so great, and we're maybe used to supporting organizations and trying to make a difference that way. Could you talk a little bit about like how you dug in and say, no, here are these people and they need help, and it's not. I'm not just going to leave it to some Rainbow Railroad to handle it. It's like this is what.
Yeah.
This is what needs. This is speaking to me.
Yeah. I am definitely Jim knows about this. The people I've attracted are just dogged. We will not let it alone. We advocate incessantly for our folks and with whatever means necessary. And we are polite, but we are on it all the time. And, so I think it's that sort of like, how do you bring the best of your abilities and just be persistent and not get too attached to the result? We kept on saying, what do we need to do next, step by step? So, again, look at this Costa Rican story. We thought we actually might be taking our folks to Costa Rica, but it ended up getting us the attention of Rainbow Railroad, which ended up getting them to Canada. So you just keep doing the next right thing. And I think that goes with life, whether it's dating, starting a business, figuring out your retirement, whatever it is. You just, what's the next right thing I need to do here? And having great friends, like a Buddha in your life, either a formal teacher or a person you trust, like my friend Lou or others here, and having a great Sangha. I mean, this Sangha is a great Sangha. And I can't even describe, I was telling these guys, I'm going to speak this morning about you guys to a group of gay Buddhists. Like, is that a thing? And I'm glad to take more questions in the break after this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph. Do we have a host today?
That would be me. So please stay and enjoy the fellowship of the Sangha. We have hot water for tea, and there's some vegan treats to sustain us. And I'll be coming around with the Dana bowl. Your generosity helps keep this Sangha alive and functioning, pays for the rent of this place, and pays our own Dana to Dana speakers, and to pays for the newsletter that goes out 4 times a year, largely to people who are incarcerated. And sometimes people gather around 12:30 at the front door and go out to lunch. Doesn't happen every week, but if there's a group of people going out, you're welcome to join.
There's no other announcements. We can gather together for the dedication of marriage. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness, which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.